was going for president like he was just.
It sounded like he believed it. It sounded like he believed it. The vision is that he would be the greatest quarterback ever in the history of the National Football League. He'd be recognized. He sets a vision. Joy, I don't think that's realistic, personally. So let me ask you, and honestly, I can't wait of all the takes that we will hear today and hearing a little bit about what you were about to say. I'm most excited to hear this or for the world to hear it because I've heard a little bit of it. What are realistic expectations for Lamar Jackson?
Realistic. What is the saying? You have all the quotes. Aim for the moon, land on a star.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I nailed that one. Yeah. I don't think you should aim low. So for him to say that, for him to have that vision with Lamar, I'm okay with that. But when we talk about greatest to ever do something, and we have overused this word, I think this word this term is about as overused as culture, is overused as swag. We constantly just throw these words out there and use them, and they lose their luster, woke, right? Nobody even knows what it means anymore. To be the greatest player to ever play the game, we already have that, right? That's Tom Brady. And pursuant of that is Lamar Jackson's peer in Patrick Mahomes. And while they have similar individual awards, as team awards go, team accomplishments go, they are not in the same boat. So to me, a realistic expectation for Lamar, something that I hope for him, and I think he will actually accomplish, is I think he will be the dual threat quarterback of this generation that breaks through to win a Super Bowl. But I also think that his influence on the game of football, when that happens, will be more far-reaching than we can quantify with championships or MVPs or notoriety. When you think of someone like a Steph Curry, very few people refer to Steph Curry as the greatest player of all time. They might call him the greatest shooter of all time, but no one really refers to Steph as the greatest player of all time. However, most people unanimously agree that his influence on the game can be seen on every single level, internationally. He's transformed how the game of basketball is played, how it is evaluated, what type of players you look for in the draft, what type of skills you're supposed to have, how you have to defend, even if you are a naturally big player. You have to be able to get out to the wing. Big players are expected to shoot threes now. In a time 10, 20 years ago, if you were a 7-footer shooting a three, get on the bench. You are not allowed to shoot. You're not allowed to shoot threes. Now it's expected. So his influence on the game of basketball is almost impossible to quantify, but it is palatable and we can see it. And I think that Lamar Jackson has been one of those players that everyone has had a very difficult time evaluating, has had a very difficult time defining. It's why he's been so polarizing in what he is and what he's capable of, although he has 2 MVPs in the league already. I think that his influence, when he is able to win a Super Bowl, will be so much more far-reaching that it really will feel minimizing to have him be argued about in the GOAT conversation, because that's really what it feels like with Steph. Like, why are we minimizing Steph to, like, is he better than LeBron? Is he better than Michael? We know what Steph is, and he has his own orbit and legacy that really matters, and the comparison kind of takes away from that.
I think it's incredibly well said, because I'll piggyback on that. I think the realistic expectations for me with Lamar is just almost close the gap between you and Pat in present form. Right now, we know that Pat is the best quarterback playing football, but Lamar, can you close the gap enough to where if the Ravens give you a good team, you can get the Ravens over the hump? I rewatched the AFC Championship game last year, and I was watching different people break it down. The difference in that game was Patrick Mahomes was better than Lamar Jackson. The Ravens' defense was good enough to win. I think they held the Chiefs to 19 points, 17 points, but it was that play. Patrick Mahomes didn't just throw a back shoulder play, he threw a back kneecap play. Without that throw, that's not a touchdown against inarguably the best nickelback in football, but one of the best safeties in football in Kyle Hamilton, an all-pro. That is an all-pro reaching his peak versus an all-pro past his peak. But because of Patrick Mahomes, that's a touchdown. I'm thinking about this. We're coming on Olympic season. They've seen the play enough times. You can take us to the gym. Because we're coming on Olympic season, I was thinking about Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, fastest man to ever run the 100 meters. And we knew Usain was going to be faster than Tyson Gay or Justin Gatlin, the fastest American at the time. But if USA was going to put together a good enough roster, hey, can you just close the gap anchor leg between you and Usain Bolt so that y'all can still win? Lamar, the Ravens gave you a good enough roster. They gave you a good enough roster. You run an anchor like Pat's run an anchor. Can you close the gap enough that with Madubuike, that with Roquan Smith, that with Kyle Hamilton, that with Marlon Humphrey, that with Derrick Henry, that with all those wide receivers, can you close the gap enough that the Ravens can get over the hump? My expectation, Shady, is that Lamar can close the gap enough to get the Ravens a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was great. That was great said. Well said. I mean, before we even talk about him being the GOAT of all time, it's things he has to do now. Like win an AFC Championship game, get to the Super Bowl. I think a realistic expectation for Lamar Jackson, changing the narrative that, you can be a dual-threat quarterback and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You could be a dual-threat quarterback and be one of the best in the league. We look at guys like Cam Newton, right? We got guys like Michael Vick, Randall Cunningham. All these guys, we talk about how special they were, but nobody ever really puts these guys as the elites of the elites. I think Lamar Jackson can change that, though, right? I think if he gives you a championship, right, 1 or 2, right, more playoff wins, 2 MVPs, maybe add another MVP, and then a Super Bowl, we can now put him in there like, okay, you can have his style of football and be one of the best quarterbacks in this game and win championships. That's like the biggest question mark when you get a quarterback that may take the hits that Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson have taken, or Cam Newton's, right? And with their style of play, can they be the best in the league, right? Can they win a Super Bowl? Well, Lamar can change that. And I think he has a talent. I think he's good enough to do that. So when you ask him about what we look him to do, it's more of that. I don't know if we really want to talk about the greatest of all time because he got to do a lot to beat that, right? And that's Tom Brady. And it's a guy and his side of the field with the Chiefs that he just can't beat. So before we get to all that, let's just worry about being the best Lamar Jackson he can be.
Yeah, for me, I mean, obviously Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson is really, really close. So you're going to talk high about your quarterback. Lamar Jackson is a special, special talent at the quarterback spot, whether you like his game or not, running, throwing, whatever it may be, whether you like his game or not. This comment, though, this is the comment that you say after you win a Super Bowl. So we're coming into the training camp after we win a Super Bowl. Hey, man, I sat down with Lamar. We trying to be the greatest ever. Then we can sit here like, they did just win one. He get back to. We shouldn't be talking about none of that until Lamar Jackson at least wins 1 Super Bowl. And I think realistic expectations is to win a Super Bowl. I think we all can sit up here and say, at one point in Lamar Jackson's career, from what we've seen right now, that he is going to win a Super Bowl. Or we think he's capable of winning a Super Bowl, Lamar Jackson. So that's realistic expectations. You've been to an AFC Championship. Obviously, you have to win one of those. But I think the talent that Lamar Jackson has and the roster that they will have around him, he will have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. But greatest ever? And you don't have none yet, and you ain't never even been to one yet, and you ain't never even won an AFC championship yet, y'all know I fight for my life up here with Aaron Rodgers, but at least I can say he won one. Let's get to one, let's win one, and then we can have a conversation trying to chase up some other ones.
I'm just trying to, Lamar is under so much pressure just naturally, just normally, right? Because who he is.
Yeah.
Like, why are you making these statements? Because I like Harbaugh. I'm just trying to figure out, what was the purpose of doing that?
It's interesting. I mean, at least he ended it and said, and by the grace of God and God's will,
God is good.
It will happen.
God is good, though.
He interjected
all the
deity.
time.
He interjected
but
the supernatural.
But he also has his favorites.
He does. You know what's interesting, Joy, and James, Shady, Joy, I'll need y'all's help with this. I was thinking and writing down names because I want the viewer to have a tangible reality of what Joy was saying, Lamar changing the game. I think about Drew Brees on a more micro level.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray probably got drafted #1 overall because Drew Brees existed. Drew Brees showed the world that, wait a second, a short quarterback, short, under 6'1", under 6'2", can play well at a high level in the NFL. Jordan Love, Trey Lance, both got drafted because of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Like, Trey Lance is not getting drafted where he got drafted if not for Pat. They looked at the tangibles, they looked at the measurables, they looked at the style of play, they saw similarities. Caleb Williams has been heralded as the greatest ever because of Patrick Mahomes. I look at Caleb Williams as the greatest ever in college because of Patrick. Patrick's the new kind of model. James, wide receiver. Like, did Anquan Bolden change things up for, like, the slower but big-bodied receiver, physical receiver, right? Like, you know, like, I know Mark Barron changed things up for the will linebacker. I don't know if y'all remember Mark Barron. Mark Barron was a safety, first-round pick. They moved him to backer. Then all of a sudden in the NFL, you stopped seeing traditional linebackers. You started seeing safeties that were bigger played linebacker. And Mark Barron was kind of that first dude who was like 6'2", 225. Is he a safety? Is he a backer? We moved him to backer, and he was kind of that first one, at least that I really saw doing that.
Yeah, I don't like this. DeSean Jackson. Them first, being a number one receiver at his height, his size, with his speed. Now you see the Tyree Hills. You see these other guys, right? Tavon Austin. You see these different dudes. DeSean's in there, too.
Xavier Worthy gets drafted in the first round of the Chiefs.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because
we got answers, bro.
You brought up pressure about Lamar Jackson. I feel like Lamar Jackson's under a lot of pressure because of the way he plays the game. I don't think the way he plays the game gets enough credit. People don't credit him enough at the quarterback spot, and they don't give him enough credit. So my question to you guys is, will he ever get into the greatest of all-time conversation? Let's say Lamar Jackson wins 3 Super Bowls.
Ooh, absolutely.
You think his style of play at the quarterback spot, people will put him in the greatest of ever
Lamar
conversation?
Jackson wins 3 Super Bowls.
I'm asking that. Because I don't think they give Lamar Jackson enough credit for the way he plays the game.
You put Aaron Rodgers in the greatest of all time. He has one Super Bowl.
But I see what he's saying.
I don't.
But I think if he were to win
3 Super Bowls?
Because I'm
if
just
he were
saying.
to win 3 Super Bowls in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era.
With his style
of play and 2 MVPs before he ever won a Super Bowl, he will absolutely be in that conversation. And I think it would even further it because I think, and the reason that I bring up Steph as an example, because obviously Steph, we feel the way that we feel about Steph because he is also a multiple-time champion. Right. It's not just that he's a great shooter. Like, it also resulted in championships. Correct. If he was able to win 3, which, and again, we got to get to 1, but if he was able to win 3 in the era of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, he'd absolutely be in that conversation, and it would be so impactful that we might not even forget people drafting people that play like Patrick Mahomes. No discredit to Patrick Mahomes, but I think in the back of everyone's mind, everyone knows still there is only one Patrick Mahomes on earth. People weren't drafting Tom Brady's. There are no Tom Brady's. So for his specific style of play, being as fast as he is, as athletic as he is, that would influence the game in a way that people would only be looking for Lamar Jackson.
The only reason why I said that is because Steph Curry has 4 of them. And we don't say that.
Don't say what?
Greatest of all time. He's in
a conversation. Though.
Yeah, he's in the top 12. He's a top 10 player. That's
okay. So that's one of the greatest. That's one of the greatest. You top 12, top 10 player of all time.
James,
I'm not saying that that's not good, but what I'm saying is we don't talk about him like the greatest.
But
before you go, when he won the last championship by himself, right, and he got the Finals MVP. People wasn't talking about is he one of the greatest and all that?
They were.
To me, here's the difference. And Joy talked about it, and I think because we try to be so kind, people don't say this often. Obviously, y'all know me. I get in trouble a lot. Lamar has kept his team from winning in the playoffs. It's not just that Lamar's team hasn't won. The difference between winning and losing has been Lamar. I don't know that I could suggest, at least thus far in Steph Curry's prime and heyday, it's not like in 2016 they lost because of Steph. So, and not only have they not lost because of Steph, they've won, like Shady just alluded to, 2022 because of Steph. But if you want to go back to the Ravens playing the Bills, when Lamar Jackson throws a pick 6 from one end zone to the other to Taron Johnson, if you want to go back to Lamar's first, I believe, playoff appearance, he had 500 or so total yards, but he had, I think, 3 turnovers. Andy, it may have been to the Tennessee Titans or to the Chargers. It was one of his first 2 playoff appearances. That game and lost many people, Titans, because of Lamar. Right. Go back to last year, Chiefs versus the Ravens. Lamar has a sack for his fumble. Charles Omenihu, Chiefs recover, and Patrick Mahomes severely outplayed him. Lamar has 6 interceptions, 6 touchdowns in the playoffs, passing. I'm not talking about his lost fumbles, and I'm not talking about his rushing touchdowns. So with that being said, until Lamar not only wins, but becomes that reason that he wins, I can't put him in that conversation.
The only reason why I say that is Jalen Hurts was not in the top 5 of the NFC quarterbacks. They didn't put him in the top 5. Strictly because I believe the way he plays the quarterback position. I don't think the way these brothers play the quarterback position gets enough respect.
Because they haven't won it. Yeah. To me, they haven't won it. So if you haven't won it, I understand why. Because they haven't won it.
But it's about winning. Where I would agree with James is there are traditional quarterbacks who also haven't won it, who get talked about as if they are in the same talent bracket or accomplishment bracket as, say, someone like a Lamar Jackson. Like, there will be people who say that someone like a Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. Now, I don't listen to those people, but they do exist. They are out there. I think they're nuts.
Because of the way he plays.
Because of the way he plays. I do think, though, that that's why I feel like what is on the table for Lamar Jackson, because we're talking about 1, 2, 3 Super Bowls. Like, let's talk about right now. Like, he's got to get to 1 to begin with. What I do think is, even if he wins 1 Super Bowl, his influence and him winning, because even though some of what you're saying is true, they also are only in the playoffs because of Lamar Jackson, which is why he has 2 MVPs. Lamar Jackson winning a Super Bowl would completely validate for the modern game that you can win a Super Bowl with a dual threats or even run first quarterback.
I need a little bit of time, sorry, Heller Joy, because you sat next to Colin every day for years. Colin said something, and I draw this equation. I look at Lamar to some degree like I look at Russell Westbrook. Like, incredible talent, MVP. We've never seen a talent like that. Many people compare him since Oscar Robertson. A whole season, he averaged a triple-double. Russell Westbrook, 3 consecutive seasons, averaged a triple-double. Now, obviously, at best, his team, when he was the best player, was a 5 seed. But Colin would often say, athletic guards, you don't see them win at all. You see Allen Iverson go to it. You see Derrick Rose go be a 1 seed facing LeBron James. You see athletic guards be really good, but you don't see athletic guards win it all. If Russell Westbrook would have won it all, then and when he was the best player, I think that would have changed the narrative around people like Colin, who have dominant shows for the last 10, 20 years. If Lamar Jackson does win it all, I think that changes the narrative. But for me, I don't think it's an unfair conversation because we just haven't seen them win it all. So I actually personally believe the playoff dialogue is fair. James, do you have a final retort or take it to break?
No, I don't.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.